The Imperial survey vessel Eternal Vigilance drifted through the darkness at the edge of known space. For 300 years, ships like this one had patrolled the borders of the Cathari Empire, watching for threats that never came. The Empire had conquered or cataloged everything worth knowing. There were no surprises left in the galaxy. Senior Scanner Officer Vethana stared at her display with tired eyes. Another shift of watching empty space. Another cycle of nothing. She had served on border patrol for 12 years, and in all that time, she had never seen anything that wasn't already in the Imperial database. The database contained records of every species, every ship design, every weapon system, and every piece of technology discovered in 40,000 years of Cathari expansion. It was the collective knowledge of an empire that spanned 1,000,000 worlds. A soft chime interrupted her boredom. Vethana looked at her screen and saw a contact marker appear near an uncharted system. She leaned forward and ran a standard identification scan. The system processed the data for a moment, then returned a result she had never seen before. No match found. Vethana blinked. She ran the scan again, thinking there must be an error. The same result appeared. No match found. She expanded the search parameters to include partial matches, theoretical designs, and historical records. The system searched for several seconds, far longer than usual. No match found. No partial match. No theoretical correlation. Her hands began to shake slightly. This was impossible. The database knew everything. It had to be a malfunction. She called up the raw sensor data and examined it herself. The contact was real. It was a ship of some kind, roughly the size of a small cruiser. It appeared to be drifting near the outer planet of an unnamed system, possibly damaged or powered down. But the design was wrong. Everything about it was wrong. Cathari ships had smooth flowing lines that mimicked the organic forms found in nature. The vessels of the Vorn Collective were built from crystalline structures that caught light in beautiful patterns. Even the primitive ships of lesser species followed recognizable design principles. This ship was different. It was angular and functional, built with hard edges and flat surfaces. There was no beauty to it, no artistic consideration. It looked like something designed purely to work, with no thought given to appearance. Vethana had never seen anything like it. She opened a channel to the bridge. "Captain Dorith, you need to see this." Captain Dorith was a veteran of 60 years in the Imperial fleet. He had seen battles, diplomatic incidents, and every kind of strange phenomenon the galaxy could produce. He walked to Vethna's station with the calm confidence of someone who believed he had seen everything. That confidence faded as he looked at her screen. "Run the identification again," he ordered. "I've run it 4 times, Captain. The database has no record of this vessel type." Dorith stared at the image for a long moment. In his entire career, he had never encountered something the database couldn't identify. The Empire had spent millennia building that database. It was supposed to be complete. "Could it be a new design from one of the known species?" he asked. "Negative, Captain. The construction methods don't match any known civilization. The hull material is unfamiliar. Even the proportions are outside normal parameters." Dorith felt something he hadn't felt in decades. He felt uncertain. He didn't like the feeling. "Launch a probe," he ordered. "I want a closer look at that ship." The probe bay released a small automated scanner, and it accelerated toward the unknown vessel. The bridge crew watched its progress on the main display. The mysterious ship remained motionless, showing no signs of activity. The probe closed to within 10,000 kilometers, then 5,000, then 1,000. At 500 kilometers, the unknown ship came alive. Vethana saw power readings spike across her display. The vessel's systems activated in a rapid sequence, faster than anything she had ever witnessed. In less than 2 seconds, the ship went from apparently dead to fully operational. A single beam of energy lanced out from the unknown vessel. It struck the probe with perfect precision, destroying it instantly. There was no warning shot, no attempt at communication, just one clean strike that eliminated the probe completely. "Shields up!" Dorith shouted. "Battle stations!" The crew scrambled to their positions. Weapon systems powered up. The Eternal Vigilance was not a warship, but it carried enough firepower to defend itself against most threats. But the unknown ship didn't attack. Instead, it did something that frightened Dorith more than any weapon could have. It vanished. One moment it was there on their sensors. The next moment, it was gone. There was no energy signature of a jump drive, no residual trace of faster-than-light travel. The ship simply disappeared as if it had never existed. Vethena frantically searched her displays. "I've lost contact, Captain. No track, no trail, nothing. Whatever drive system they use, we can't detect it." Dorothy stood in silence, processing what had just happened. An unknown ship from an unknown species, using unknown technology, had just demonstrated capabilities beyond anything in Imperial records. It had destroyed their probe with casual ease, and then escaped using a method they couldn't even identify. "Get me a secure channel to Imperial Command," he said quietly. "Priority encryption." "What classification, Captain?" Dorothy thought about it. Standard emergency codes wouldn't convey the seriousness of this situation. He needed something that would get attention at the highest levels. "Use Code Omega," he said. Vethena's eyes widened. Code Omega was a priority classification that hadn't been used in 3 centuries. It was reserved for existential threats to the Empire itself. Using it without justification was a career-ending offense. "Sir, are you certain?" "I'm certain. Send the message." She input the code and opened the channel. Dorothy stepped forward and began to speak, knowing that his words would reach the most powerful beings in the Empire. "This is Captain Dorothy of the Imperial Survey Vessel Eternal Vigilance. We have encountered an unidentified vessel at the following coordinates. The vessel's design does not match any entry in the Imperial database. I repeat, the database has no record of this ship or its origin species. The vessel destroyed one of our probes and escaped using a propulsion system we cannot track. We were unable to establish communication or determine hostile intent beyond the destruction of our probe. Requesting immediate guidance from Imperial Command. This is not a drill. This is not an error. Something is out there that we don't know about." He ended the transmission and stood staring at the empty space where the unknown ship had been. 40,000 years of expansion, millions of conquered worlds, thousands of cataloged species. The Cathari Empire believed it knew everything worth knowing about the galaxy. They were wrong. In a small conference room adjacent to the bridge, Dorothy met with his senior officers. Their faces showed the same confusion and concern he felt. "What do we actually know?" he asked. His tactical officer, a young male named Kurth, spoke first. "The weapon they used was some kind of directed energy beam. High power, extremely precise. They hit a probe traveling at high speed with a single shot. That suggests advanced targeting systems." "The power-up sequence was remarkable," Vethena added. "They went from cold to fully operational in under 2 seconds. Our ships take at least 30 seconds for a cold start. Whatever their technology is, it's more efficient than ours." "And that drive system," the engineering officer said, shaking his head. "I've studied every known method of faster-than-light travel. I've never seen anything like what they did. It's as if they just stopped existing in one place and started existing somewhere else." Dorothy listened to each report, and each one made him more worried. This wasn't just an unknown species. This was an unknown species with technology that appeared to exceed Imperial capabilities in multiple areas. "The question," he said slowly, "is whether they're hostile." "They destroyed our probe," Kurth pointed out. "They destroyed a probe that was approaching their ship without permission. From their perspective, that might have looked like a threat. They didn't fire on us, even though they clearly had the capability. So it might have been a warning? Maybe. Or maybe they were gathering information about us before they report back to their own people." Dorothy rubbed his eyes. "We don't know anything about them. We don't know what they want, where they come from, or how many of them there are. And that's the most dangerous situation I can imagine." The bridge communications officer interrupted with a message. "Captain, we're receiving a response from Imperial Command." "Put it through." The voice that came through the speakers belonged to someone far above Dorothy's rank. "Captain Dorothy, your report has been received and verified. You are ordered to maintain position and continue observation. Do not engage the unknown vessel if it returns. Do not attempt communication. Additional ships are being dispatched to your location. Intelligence teams are being assembled. You will provide complete cooperation with all arriving personnel. Confirm receipt." "Confirmed, Command. We will hold position and await support." The channel closed. Dorth looked at his officers and saw the same thought on all their faces. The Empire was scared. Whatever was out there in the darkness, it had accomplished something no enemy had managed in 10,000 years. It had made the Cathari Empire afraid of the unknown. On the far side of the galaxy, in a small ship called the Wanderer, a human captain named Sarah Chen was making her own report. "We encountered an alien probe near the outer system," she said into her recorder. "It approached without communication and began detailed scans of our vessel. Given standing orders to avoid detection, we destroyed the probe and withdrew using emergency jump protocols. We were able to observe the source vessel before departing. It appears to be a patrol ship of some kind, belonging to a species we have not previously contacted." She paused, considering her next words carefully. "The alien ship made no attempt to pursue. This could indicate limited capabilities, or it could indicate they are waiting for reinforcements. Either way, I am recommending we report this encounter to command immediately. We may have just made first contact with a major galactic power." She ended the recording and sat back in her chair. Through the viewport, she could see the stars stretching out to infinity. Somewhere out there was an alien empire that had never heard of humanity. That was about to change. The Imperial Intelligence Citadel rose from the surface of Keth Prime like a black spear pointing at the sky. It was the most secure building on the throne world, protected by shields that could withstand orbital bombardment and guards who would die before allowing an unauthorized entry. Inside its walls, the secrets of a million worlds were stored, analyzed, and protected. High Archivist Seleth had served in this building for 40 years. She was responsible for maintaining the Imperial database, the greatest collection of knowledge ever assembled. Every species, every technology, every historical event worth recording existed within that database. It was her life's work, and she took great pride in its completeness. When the report from the Eternal Vigilance arrived, she dismissed it as an error. "Impossible," she said to her assistant. "The database contains records of every spacefaring civilization in the galaxy. If there was a species we hadn't cataloged, we would have encountered evidence of them long ago." "The captain seems quite certain, High Archivist. He used code Omega." Seleth waved a hand dismissively. "Border Patrol captains become paranoid after too many years in empty space. He probably encountered some natural phenomenon and mistook it for a ship. But duty required her to investigate. She accessed the sensor data from the Eternal Vigilance and ran it through her own analysis systems. The results came back the same as they had for Captain Dorth. No match found." Seleth frowned and expanded her search. She checked historical records going back 50,000 years. She checked theoretical designs that had never been built. She checked the records of extinct species and ancient civilizations. She even checked the classified files that only a handful of beings in the Empire were allowed to access. Nothing. The database had no record of anything that looked like the vessel in the sensor data. For the first time in her career, Seleth felt the cold touch of doubt. The database was supposed to be complete. It was supposed to know everything. If something existed that wasn't in the database, then everything she believed about the Empire's knowledge was wrong. She immediately contacted Intelligence Director Morn. Director Morn was not a scientist or an archivist. He was a spy master, a being who dealt in secrets and shadows. He had spent his career uncovering hidden truths and eliminating threats before they could harm the Empire. When Seleth explained the situation, he understood the implications immediately. "You're telling me there's a spacefaring species that we have never encountered, never detected, and have no records of whatsoever?" "That is correct, Director. I have run every analysis possible. The vessel in this data does not match anything in our archives." Morn was silent for a long moment. "Convene an emergency session of the Intelligence Council. I want every senior analyst in the chamber within the hour." The Intelligence Council met in a room with no windows and walls that blocked all forms of surveillance. 12 of the most powerful minds in the Empire gathered around a circular table, studying the sensor data from the Eternal Vigilance. "The design philosophy is completely alien," said Chief Analyst Vorth. "Look at the construction. Hard angles, flat surfaces, no aesthetic consideration. Every spacefaring species develops ships that reflect their cultural values. This ship has no cultural markers we can identify." "The weapon's signature is equally puzzling," added Weapons Specialist Korath. "It's a directed energy weapon of some kind, But the power output and efficiency are beyond anything we've achieved. They destroyed that probe with a single shot at maximum range. What concerns me most, said a junior analyst named Thessa, is what they didn't do. The room turned to look at her. Junior analysts rarely spoke in council meetings. Explain, Director Morn said. Thessa pulled up the tactical display. The unknown vessel clearly had the capability to destroy the Eternal Vigilance. Our patrol ships are not heavily armed. If they wanted to eliminate witnesses, they could have done so easily. Instead, they destroyed only the probe and then withdrew. You think it was a warning? I think they were being careful. They eliminated the probe because it was scanning them and gathering data. But they left the patrol ship alone, either because they didn't consider it a threat or because they didn't want to escalate the situation. Director Morn leaned back in his chair. So we have an unknown species with advanced technology that apparently prefers caution over aggression. That could be good news or very bad news. How could that be bad news? Someone asked. Because cautious enemies are usually smart enemies, and smart enemies are much harder to defeat than aggressive ones. The meeting continued for hours, but no clear answers emerged. They simply didn't have enough information. The unknown vessel had appeared, destroyed a probe, and vanished. It had left behind nothing but questions. Far across the galaxy, those questions were being discussed in a very different setting. The human exploration vessel Wanderer had reached a communication relay station and transmitted its report to Earth Command. Within hours, a response came back ordering Captain Sarah Chen to a secure facility for debriefing. She sat in a small room facing 3 admirals and 2 civilian officials. They had studied her report with great interest. "You're certain the alien vessel was a patrol ship?" Admiral Morrison asked. The design and behavior patterns suggested a routine patrol. It wasn't expecting to encounter us. When it launched the probe, I had to make a quick decision. You could have allowed the probe to scan you and then withdrawn peacefully. With respect, Admiral, we don't know what their scanning technology is capable of. That probe might have gathered enough information to track us back to human space. I made a judgment call to protect our location. The admirals exchanged looks. They couldn't fault her logic, even if her actions might have started something they weren't ready for. "Tell us about the alien vessel itself," said one of the civilians. Chen pulled up her ship's sensor recordings. "Based on our scans, it's a vessel roughly equivalent to one of our light cruisers. The hull material is some kind of organic metallic composite we haven't seen before. The power readings suggest they use a different type of reactor than we do. Overall, I would estimate their technology is advanced, but not dramatically superior to ours in most areas." In most areas? Their sensors seemed quite sophisticated. They detected us even though we were running silent protocols. That suggests a detection capability we need to take seriously. Admiral Morrison studied the images for a long moment. "This is the first contact with an alien civilization in over 200 years. The last 3 species we encountered were primitive compared to us. This one is clearly not." "No, sir. This one is not." "What's your assessment of their intentions?" Chen considered the question carefully. "They launched a probe to investigate us, which suggests curiosity rather than immediate hostility. When we destroyed the probe, they didn't retaliate against our ship. They could have, but they chose to retreat instead. I think they were gathering information, not looking for a fight. So they might be peaceful? They might be. Or they might be cautious predators who prefer to study their prey before attacking. We simply don't have enough data to know." The debriefing lasted for several more hours. When it was over, Chen was dismissed while the admirals continued their discussions. "We need to make a decision," Admiral Morrison said. "Do we try to make contact with this species, or do we continue hiding? Hiding has served us well for 2 centuries, another admiral pointed out. We've expanded into 70 star systems without attracting attention from any major power. Why risk that now? Because they've seen us. Whatever empire operates that patrol ship, they now know we exist. Hiding only works when no one is looking for you." The civilian representative spoke up. "There's also the question of what kind of civilization we're dealing with. If they're expansionist and aggressive, hiding might just delay an inevitable conflict. But if they're open to peaceful contact, we might be missing an opportunity. The debate continued late into the night. In the end, they reached a compromise decision. Humanity would not seek out contact with the unknown aliens, but they would also not flee if encountered again. They would try to communicate and judge the aliens' intentions based on their response. It was a cautious approach, but caution had kept humanity alive in a dangerous galaxy. Back on Keth Prime, Director Morn received a report that made his blood run cold. "A second encounter?" he demanded. "Yes, Director." The patrol ship Vigilant Observer encountered 3 vessels matching the unknown design profile near System 447. They attempted to make contact, but the unknown ships powered up weapons and began moving away. "What happened?" The messenger hesitated. The captain of the Vigilant Observer interpreted the weapon's activation as a threat. He ordered his ship to fire warning shots. Morn closed his eyes. "Tell me he didn't hit them." "He did not, but the unknown vessels returned fire." "And?" "The Vigilant Observer has been destroyed, Director. We recovered 2 escape pods with a handful of survivors. The rest of the crew is dead." Morn sat in silence for a long moment. One of their ships had been destroyed by an unknown enemy. This was no longer a mystery to be investigated. This was a crisis. "Summon the War Council," he ordered, "and inform the Emperor we may be facing a new war." The survivors from the Vigilant Observer were brought to the Intelligence Citadel for questioning. They were traumatized and terrified, but they provided crucial information about what they had witnessed. "The battle lasted 11 seconds, said the weapons officer, her voice shaking. 11 seconds. They moved like nothing I've ever seen. Our targeting systems couldn't track them. Our weapons couldn't hit them. And when they fired back, their shots went right through our shields like they weren't even there." "They bypassed your shields?" "I don't know how. Our shields were at full power, but their weapons just ignored them. 3 shots, 3 hits. Reactor, life support, and command bridge. They knew exactly where to hit us to cripple the ship without destroying it completely." "They left you alive deliberately?" The weapons officer nodded slowly. "I think so. They could have finished us. Instead, they stopped firing once we were helpless. They waited until we launched escape pods, and then they left." Director Morn reviewed the testimony with growing concern. The unknown enemy had demonstrated precise tactical skill. They had disabled an Imperial warship with surgical precision, and they had shown mercy when they could have shown none. What kind of enemy does that? On a quiet planet far from the conflict, Captain Chen received orders that would change everything. "You've been appointed as humanity's first ambassador to the unknown species," Admiral Morrison said via secure communication. "If we encounter them again, you will attempt to establish peaceful contact. And if they're not interested in peace, then you will defend yourself and return home. But we believe there's a chance for something better. That chance is worth pursuing." Chen accepted the assignment. She had destroyed their probe and started this situation. Now she would try to finish it peacefully. She just hoped the aliens would give her that chance. The debris field stretched across 10,000 kilometers of empty space. What had once been the Imperial cruiser Dominance Absolute was now scattered metal and frozen atmosphere, drifting slowly in the void. Recovery ships moved carefully through the wreckage, searching for survivors and collecting evidence. Admiral Kethvor stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the recovery operation through the main display. He had commanded the Imperial fleet for 30 years. He had fought in 17 major campaigns. He had never seen anything like this. 11 seconds, he said quietly. The battle lasted 11 seconds. His aide nodded grimly. The Dominance Absolute was a modern warship with full weapons and shields. It should have been able to hold its own against 3 small vessels. It should have. It didn't. Kethvor turned away from the display. "I want every piece of wreckage analyzed. I want to know exactly what weapons they used and how they bypassed our shields. I want to understand how they move and how they target. We lost good soldiers today. Their deaths will teach us how to fight this enemy." The analysis took 3 days. When the results came in, they offered no comfort. The enemy weapons appear to use some form of phased energy that oscillates at frequencies our shields aren't designed to block, the chief scientist explained. "In simple terms, they've found a gap in our defenses that we didn't know existed. Can we close that gap? Given time, perhaps. But we would need to study one of their weapons directly. The residual energy signatures only tell us so much. Admiral Kethavor made his report to the Imperial War Council. The 12 most powerful military commanders in the Empire sat around a massive table carved from black stone. At the head of the table sat an empty chair reserved for the Emperor, who watched the proceedings through hidden cameras. "We face an unknown enemy with unknown numbers and unknown capabilities," Kethavor began. "What we do know is troubling. They possess weapons that can bypass our shields. They have propulsion systems we cannot track. Their tactical skill is exceptional. In the one engagement we have observed, they destroyed a modern warship in under 15 seconds. Then we send a larger force," said Admiral Torith. "If 3 of their ships can destroy one of ours, we send 20 ships. We overwhelm them with numbers. And if they have 20 ships, or 200, or 2,000? Kethavor shook his head. "We don't know anything about the size of their civilization. We could be facing a small group of explorers or the advanced scouts of an empire larger than our own." "We cannot appear weak," Torith insisted. "If word spreads that unknown attackers destroyed one of our ships without consequence, every enemy we have ever made will see an opportunity." "I am not suggesting we appear weak. I am suggesting we learn more before we commit to a war we may not be able to win." The debate continued for hours. The council was divided between those who wanted immediate military action and those who urged caution. The Empire had not faced a serious military threat in centuries. Some saw this as an exciting opportunity to prove imperial superiority. Others saw it as a dangerous situation that required careful handling. Finally, the Emperor's voice emerged from hidden speakers. He rarely spoke directly in council meetings, preferring to observe and issue orders later. His intervention now showed how seriously he took the situation. "We will pursue both paths," the Emperor declared. "Admiral Torith will assemble a battle fleet capable of responding to any further aggression. Admiral Kethavor will lead an intelligence operation to learn everything possible about this enemy. We will prepare for war while seeking to understand what we face." "And if they attack again while we are preparing?" Torith asked. "Then we respond with appropriate force. But we do not strike first until we know what we are striking at." The council meeting ended with clear orders. The Empire would prepare for conflict while gathering intelligence. It was a reasonable approach to an impossible situation. On the other side of the galaxy, humanity was having similar discussions. Admiral Morrison faced his own council of military and civilian leaders. The destruction of the alien warship had not been planned or desired. The 3 human ships involved had tried to withdraw peacefully. When the aliens fired warning shots, the human captains had interpreted it as an attack and responded with lethal force. "We tried to leave," Captain Vasquez explained. "We powered up our engines to jump out of the system. They opened fire on us. The shots were clearly aimed to miss, but in a combat situation, you can't always tell the difference between a warning and a near miss. So you returned fire. We defended ourselves. Once combat began, we executed standard tactical protocols. Disable enemy weapons, engines, and command functions. Minimize casualties when possible. You destroyed their ship. We disabled it. The ship was crippled but intact. We stopped firing once it was no longer a threat. If their crew had better damage control procedures, they might have saved more lives." Morrison reviewed the combat recordings. The human ships had moved with practiced precision, using their superior maneuverability to avoid enemy fire while delivering precise strikes to critical systems. They had not tried to destroy the alien ship completely. They had tried to neutralize it. "You showed restraint," Morrison observed. "We tried to. Once they stopped being a threat, we stopped shooting. We even waited to make sure they were launching escape pods before we left the area." "Why?" Vasquez looked confused by the question. "Because killing helpless enemies isn't what we do. We're not murderers. We defend ourselves when we have to, but we don't slaughter people who can't fight back." Morrison nodded slowly. This was the core of human military doctrine. Humanity had nearly destroyed itself in the wars of its early history. When they finally achieved peace, they had made a collective decision to be better than they had been. Military force was a tool of last resort, used only in defense, and always with restraint. The aliens probably didn't understand that. From their perspective, they had encountered an unknown species that destroyed their ships with terrifying efficiency and then disappeared into the void. They must be frightened and confused. "We need to communicate with them," Morrison said. "We need to explain what happened and why. They might not want to listen. They might want revenge. Then we defend ourselves again. But we have to try. We didn't come all this way just to start another war." The decision was made. Humanity would attempt to make contact with the alien empire and explain themselves. Captain Chen and her ship would lead the diplomatic mission, carrying a message of peace. But first, they needed to get the aliens' attention. The Imperial Border Station's Sentinel's Watch was a small outpost monitoring a quiet sector of space. It was staffed by 30 personnel who mostly spent their time fighting boredom. They had never expected to see actual contact with an unknown enemy. When three strange ships appeared at the edge of their sensor range, the station commander immediately ordered a distress signal. "Unknown vessels approaching. Request immediate military support." But the unknown ships didn't attack. They approached slowly, broadcasting on all frequencies. The station's communication officer worked frantically to decode the transmissions. "They're trying to talk to us," she said, amazement in her voice. "It's some kind of language. Structured, definitely artificial. They're trying to communicate." The station commander hesitated. His orders were clear. "Do not engage unknown vessels. Wait for military support." But these ships weren't attacking. They were talking. "Can you respond?" "I can send basic mathematical signals. That's the standard first contact protocol." "Do it." For the next hour, the station and the unknown ships exchanged mathematical sequences, prime numbers, geometric progressions, universal constants. It was the slow, careful language of first contact used by civilizations across the galaxy to establish that they were intelligent beings capable of communication. Finally, the unknown ships broadcast something new, a visual message. The station crew gathered around the display as the image appeared. They were the first Cathari to see a human being. The creature on the screen was strange but not monstrous. 2 arms, 2 legs, a head with 2 eyes and a mouth. It wore clothing of some kind. It held up 2 empty hands in what appeared to be a gesture of peace. Then it spoke. The words were meaningless, but the translation began automatically as the station's computers processed the linguistic patterns. "We did not seek this conflict. We will not flee from it. But we do not want more death. We are willing to talk. If you are willing to listen, send a representative to the coordinates we are transmitting. We will wait." The message repeated 3 times. Then the unknown ships turned and departed, leaving the coordinates behind. The station commander immediately forwarded the message to Imperial Command. Within hours, it had reached Director Morn and the War Council. "They want to talk," Morn said, studying the image of the unknown creature. "After destroying our ship, they want to negotiate." "It could be a trap," Admiral Torith warned. "Of course it could, but it could also be exactly what it appears. An enemy offering to end hostilities before things escalate further." "Why would they offer that? They're clearly capable of defeating our ships. Why not press their advantage?" Morn had no answer to that question. In his experience, enemies pressed advantages. They didn't offer to talk when they were winning. This behavior made no sense unless they don't want to win, he said slowly, unless victory isn't their goal. The War Council debated for hours. In the end, they agreed to send a representative to the coordinates. It would be a small ship with a diplomatic team, accompanied by a hidden military escort ready to respond if treachery occurred. The Empire would talk to these strange new enemies. It would try to understand what they wanted, and if they wanted war, the Empire would give them one they would never forget. Captain Chen waited at the designated coordinates. Her ship was alone and unarmed except for basic defensive systems. It was a gesture of trust, though she suspected the aliens wouldn't see it that way. "Contact on sensors," her officer reported. "Single vessel, small, coming in slowly. Let them approach. Don't make any sudden moves." The alien ship came closer. It was small and elegant, with the smooth, organic curves that seemed to characterize their design philosophy. It came to a stop a safe distance away. A communication channel opened. Chen took a deep breath. This was the moment. Everything depended on what happened in the next few minutes. "My name is Sarah Chen," she said, speaking slowly and clearly. "I represent the human species. We come in peace, seeking understanding between our peoples. We regret the violence that has occurred. We hope to prevent more. There was a long pause, then a response came, translated by the ship's computers. I am Director Morn of the Cathari Empire. You have destroyed our ships and killed our people. Explain. Chen nodded. At least they were talking. We were explorers in unknown space. When your patrol ship launched a probe toward us, we feared it would reveal our location to a civilization we knew nothing about. We destroyed the probe to protect ourselves. When your warship fired upon our ships, we defended ourselves. We did not seek either confrontation. We responded to what we perceived as threats. You perceived our ships as threats and responded with overwhelming force. That suggests you are dangerous. We are capable of defending ourselves. That is not the same as being dangerous. We have no interest in conquering your empire or harming your people. We want only to explore the galaxy and live in peace. Another long pause. Chen could almost feel Director Morn thinking, trying to understand. If you want peace, Morn said finally, why do you carry such powerful weapons? Chen smiled sadly. Because we learned long ago that peace without strength is just an invitation for others to attack you. We carry weapons so that we never have to use them. When we do use them, we use them with restraint. Restraint? You destroyed our warship. We disabled your warship. We stopped firing once it was no longer a threat. We waited until your escape pods launched before we departed. If we wanted to destroy you completely, we could have. We chose not to. Morn fell silent again. Chen waited, hoping he would understand. The next words that came across the channel were heavy with something Chen didn't expect. Uncertainty. We need to talk more, Director Morn said. There is much we do not understand about you. Perhaps there is much you do not understand about us. Then let's understand each other, Chen replied. That's why I'm here. For the first time since the crisis began, both sides were listening. The preliminary talks between Director Morn and Captain Chen lasted 3 days. They met aboard neutral vessels, exchanged basic information about their civilizations, and began the slow process of building understanding. But while diplomats talked, the Empire continued to plan for war. Admiral Toreth commanded the largest fleet assembled in a century. 50 warships orbited a staging base near the border, ready to strike at the unknown enemy if negotiations failed. Among the fleet's commanders, there was eager anticipation. The Cathari Empire had not fought a real war in generations. Many young officers saw this as their chance for glory. Toreth was not so eager. He had read the intelligence reports. He had studied the combat recordings from the Dominance Absolute. He had seen how quickly and precisely the unknown enemy moved. He was not afraid, but he was cautious. If we fight these creatures, he told his senior captains, we will win eventually. We have the numbers and the resources, but we will pay a heavy price. Every ship we lose is a ship that cannot be easily replaced. Every soldier who dies is a trained warrior gone forever. Then what do you recommend, Admiral? I recommend we hope the diplomats succeed. War should be a last resort, not a first choice. While the fleet waited, Director Morn continued his negotiations. He was fascinated by the creatures called humans. They were smaller than Cathari, softer in appearance, apparently fragile. Yet they had built ships that could defeat Imperial warships. The contradiction intrigued him. Tell me about your species, he asked Captain Chen during one of their meetings. Where do you come from? How long have you traveled the stars? Chen considered how much to reveal. She decided that honesty was the best strategy. Deception would only cause problems later. We come from a planet called Earth, in a star system you have not yet explored. We developed space travel approximately 300 years ago. We have been exploring the galaxy ever since. 300 years? Morn was surprised. You are very young compared to us. The Cathari Empire has existed for over 40,000 years. We are young, yes, but we learn quickly. Obviously, your weapons technology is impressive for such a young species. How did you develop it so rapidly? Chen's expression grew serious. We developed it because we had to. Before we reached the stars, we spent most of our history fighting each other. War after war after war. We became very good at killing. Too good. You fought among yourselves? For most of our existence, yes. Different nations, different ideologies, different religions. We found countless reasons to slaughter each other. We developed weapons capable of destroying our entire civilization. We came very close to using them. Morn leaned forward with interest. What stopped you? Fear. We realized that if we continued down that path, we would destroy ourselves completely. So we made a choice. We would stop fighting each other. We would unite as a single species. We would turn our talents toward exploration instead of destruction. And your weapons? We kept them. We improved them. Because the universe is large and full of dangers. But we made a promise to ourselves. We would never use those weapons except in defense. We would never become the monsters we almost became. Morn studied the human carefully. The story was almost too noble to believe. A species that nearly destroyed itself, then chose to become better. It sounded like a legend rather than history. Do you expect me to believe that you have completely abandoned aggression? That you pose no threat to the Empire? I expect you to be skeptical. I would be skeptical in your position, but I can only tell you the truth and hope that time proves my words sincere. The negotiations continued, but neither side fully trusted the other. The Empire prepared for war while talking peace. Humanity did the same. Both civilizations watched and waited, trying to understand what the other truly wanted. Then something happened that changed everything. 3 human ships appeared in orbit above Velith Prime, a minor colony world in the Empire's outer territories. The colony had a population of 2 million Cathari citizens. They had no military forces to speak of, only a small local defense unit. When the unknown ships appeared, panic swept through the population. They remembered the stories of the destroyed warship. They expected death to follow, but death did not come. Instead, the human ships broadcast a message to the entire planet. It was in the Cathari language, carefully translated to be understood by everyone. Citizens of Velith Prime, we are humans. We mean you no harm. We have come here to demonstrate our intentions, not through words but through actions. We could attack your world if we wished. We will not. We could demand tribute or submission. We will not. We want only peace between our peoples. Our conflict is with your government's decisions, not with ordinary citizens like yourselves. We will remain here for 1 hour, then depart peacefully. During that time, any of you who wish to send messages to your government may do so freely. Tell them what you have seen today. Tell them that the humans who could have destroyed you instead chose mercy. For 1 hour, the human ships orbited Velith Prime. They made no threatening moves. They did not interfere with communications or transportation. They simply waited, visible to everyone on the planet below. Then they left, exactly as promised. The colony's communication systems lit up with messages. Citizens who had expected to die were instead alive and confused. They had been shown that the unknown enemy could strike at will, but chose not to. The message spread across the Empire faster than any official announcement. Director Morn received the news during a negotiating session. His aide interrupted with an urgent message, and Morn's face went pale as he read it. You appeared at one of our colonies, he said to Chen, his voice tight with controlled anger. You threatened 2 million of our citizens. We did not threaten them. We specifically stated that we meant no harm, and we proved it by leaving without harming anyone. Then why? Why appear there at all? Because words are easy. Anyone can promise peace. We wanted to show your people, not just your government, that our promises are real. We could have hurt them. We chose not to. That choice is more meaningful than any treaty we could sign. Morn struggled with his emotions. Part of him was furious at the violation of Imperial space. Part of him was impressed by the calculated demonstration. And part of him was afraid, because these humans had just proven they could reach any world in the Empire. You could have started a war with that stunt. If your people wanted war, they would have started one already. Your fleet has been assembled at the border for days. Your military is ready to strike, but you haven't struck because you're not sure you can win, and you're not sure if war is necessary. You're gambling with millions of lives. I'm trying to save millions of lives. A war between our peoples would kill far more than 2 million. I'm trying to prevent that war by showing that we don't need to be enemies. The room fell silent. Morn stood and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. You are the most unusual enemy I have ever faced, he said finally. You fight like demons when attacked. then offer peace and mercy when you could press your advantage. You refuse to conquer even when conquest would be easy. You take risks to demonstrate good faith rather than demanding proof from us. We are not your enemy, Director. We never wanted to be. Then what do you want? Chen joined him at the window. We want to explore the galaxy. We want to meet other species and learn from them. We want to trade knowledge and culture. We want to grow and develop as a civilization. And we want to do all of that without having to fight wars of conquest or defend ourselves against empires that see us as a threat. You want acceptance. We want coexistence. We don't need your empire to love us. We just need you to leave us alone. In return, we'll leave you alone. If at some point you want to trade or share knowledge, we're open to that too. But the first step is simply not killing each other. Morn considered her words carefully. The humans wanted nothing that threatened the empire. They weren't seeking territory or tribute. They weren't trying to impose their beliefs on Cathari citizens. They simply wanted to exist in the same galaxy without conflict. It was such a modest request, and yet the empire had almost gone to war over it. I will need to speak with the Emperor, Morn said. He makes the final decisions on matters like this. I understand. Take whatever time you need. We are patient. Morn returned to Keth Prime and requested a private audience with the Emperor. He brought recordings of his conversations with Captain Chen, analysis of the Velith Prime incident, and his own assessment of the situation. The Emperor listened without interruption. He was ancient even by Cathari standards, having ruled for nearly 3 centuries. He had seen threats come and go. He had fought wars and made peace. He understood power and restraint. These humans puzzle me, he said when Morn finished. They have the power to threaten us, yet they offer peace. They could have destroyed our colony, yet they gave us speech instead. Either they are extraordinarily sophisticated manipulators, or they are genuinely different from any enemy we have faced before. I believe they are genuine, Majesty. Their representative speaks with conviction. Their actions match their words. When they could have killed, they chose not to. You trust them. I trust that they want peace. I trust that they will respond to aggression with overwhelming force. I trust that we cannot defeat them quickly or easily. Therefore, I believe peace serves our interests as much as theirs. The Emperor was silent for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. Arrange a meeting. I will speak with their representative myself. The announcement shocked the War Council. The Emperor rarely met with foreign leaders, and never with representatives of species that had killed Imperial soldiers. Some advisors urged him to reconsider. Others warned of assassination attempts. The Emperor dismissed their concerns. If these humans wanted me dead, they could have attacked the throne world already. They have demonstrated the ability to reach any world in the Empire. If they wished us harm, they would have done harm. They want to talk, so I will talk. That is the decision of an emperor. The meeting was arranged. Captain Chen was informed that she would be speaking with the most powerful being in the Cathari Empire. She prepared carefully, knowing that everything depended on this conversation. The future of 2 civilizations would be decided by what happened next. The meeting took place in deep space, far from any inhabited world. A single human vessel waited at the agreed coordinates. An Imperial shuttle approached, carrying the Emperor himself along with a small escort of guards and advisors. Captain Chen stood alone in the meeting chamber of her ship. She had been offered guards and advisors of her own, but she had declined them. This meeting was about trust. She wanted to demonstrate it from the beginning. The airlock opened, and the Emperor of the Cathari Empire entered. He was tall, nearly 3 meters, with the smooth gray skin and large dark eyes characteristic of his species. His robes were simple but clearly expensive, the fabric shimmering with subtle patterns that shifted as he moved. His bearing was that of someone who had commanded others for centuries. Behind him came Director Morn and 3 guards. The guards positioned themselves near the door, their hands ready to draw weapons if needed. Chen bowed respectfully. Your Majesty, thank you for agreeing to meet with me. The Emperor studied her with ancient eyes. You are smaller than I expected. Your species is smaller. Yet you have caused more concern in my government than any enemy in 1,000 years. We did not intend to cause concern. We were exploring and were surprised to encounter your people. Everything that followed was a series of reactions to unexpected events. You destroyed our probe and our warship. We defended ourselves when we felt threatened. We would have preferred peaceful first contact. The Emperor moved to a chair that had been prepared for him. He sat down slowly, his age showing in his movements despite his commanding presence. Tell me about humanity, Captain Chen. Not the diplomatic version. Tell me the truth. Chen took a seat across from him. The truth is complicated, Majesty. Humanity is a species that has struggled with its own nature since it first developed intelligence. We are capable of great kindness and terrible cruelty. We have built beautiful civilizations and destroyed them through war and stupidity. We have reached for the stars while simultaneously trying to exterminate each other. You do not paint a flattering picture of your people. I am being honest. You asked for truth. The truth is that we are a flawed species that has made terrible mistakes. The important thing is what we learn from those mistakes. And what did you learn? Chen leaned forward. We learned that power without restraint leads to destruction. We learned that violence breeds more violence until nothing remains. We learned that the easy choice is often wrong, and the hard choice is usually necessary. Most importantly, we learned that we could change. We could choose to be better than our history suggested we should be. Many species claim to have reformed. Few actually manage it. You're right. It's easy to say and hard to do. We didn't manage it all at once. We took it one generation at a time. Parents teaching children, leaders setting examples, slowly building a culture that valued restraint over aggression, cooperation over competition. It took centuries and we're still not perfect, but we're better than we were. The Emperor considered her words. And yet you maintain powerful weapons. You destroyed our warship with ease. That suggests you have not entirely abandoned your violent nature. We carry weapons because the galaxy is dangerous. We have encountered species that would destroy us without hesitation if we were weak. We will not be weak, but there is a difference between being capable of violence and choosing violence. We are capable. We choose not to when we have alternatives. At Velith Prime, you could have demanded surrender. You could have taken hostages. Instead, you gave a speech and left. We wanted to demonstrate our intentions, not threaten your citizens. Those people had done nothing to us. They didn't deserve to be frightened. But they needed to understand that we were not the monsters your government might paint us as. The Emperor turned to Director Morn. What is your assessment? Morn stepped forward. The humans are dangerous, Majesty. Make no mistake about that. If we go to war with them, we will suffer greatly before we achieve victory, if we achieve victory at all. Their technology is advanced, their tactics are sophisticated, and their discipline is exceptional. But I believe Captain Chen is telling the truth. They do not want war. They do not want conquest. They want to be left alone to explore and develop their civilization. That is not an unreasonable desire. The Emperor nodded slowly. And if we grant them this desire, if we acknowledge their existence and establish peaceful relations, what does the Empire gain? Peace, Majesty, stability, the absence of a costly war, and perhaps in time, a trading partner and ally. The humans have technologies we do not understand. They might be willing to share knowledge if we approach them as friends rather than enemies. You are suggesting we accept them as equals? I am suggesting we accept them as what they are, a young species with great potential, neither our servants nor our enemies. The Empire has made room for thousands of species within its borders. We can make room for one more beyond them. The Emperor fell silent, thinking. The chamber was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's systems. Finally, he turned back to Captain Chen. I have ruled the Kithari Empire for 300 years. In that time, I have learned that pride is often the enemy of wisdom. My advisors wanted to launch a war against your people. They saw your destruction of our ships as an insult that demanded vengeance. They were thinking with their pride, not their minds. What do you think, Majesty? I think that wisdom lies in recognizing when conflict serves no purpose. You do not want our territory. You do not threaten our citizens. You ask only to exist in peace. That is a request I can grant without losing anything of value. Chen felt hope rising in her chest, but she kept her expression calm. Then you are willing to consider a peace agreement? I am willing to do more than consider. I am prepared to offer official recognition of humanity as an independent civilization, with guaranteed borders and full diplomatic relations. In exchange, I ask only for two things. Name them. First, a promise that you will not attack Imperial ships or territories unless you are attacked first. Simple, mutual non-aggression. That is already our policy. We agree. Second, I want to understand your species better. You spoke of your history, your wars, your transformation. I want to learn more. I want scholars from both our civilizations to study each other, to share knowledge, to build genuine understanding. Not just political tolerance, but real comprehension of who we are to each other. Chen smiled. We would welcome that. Learning about other civilizations is why we explore in the first place. The emperor rose from his chair. Then we have an agreement in principle. My diplomats will work with yours to finalize the details. But know this, Captain Chen. I am trusting your word. If that trust is betrayed, if your species proves to be the conquerors you claim you are not, then the Empire will respond with all its power. I understand, Majesty, and I give you my word that humanity will honor this agreement. We have fought too hard to become what we are. We will not throw it away for conquest. The Emperor extended his hand in a gesture that was not traditional for his species, but which he had learned was meaningful to humans. Chen took it, and they shook once. Peace between our peoples, the Emperor said. Peace, Chen agreed. The news of the agreement spread across both civilizations. There was celebration among those who had feared war, and grumbling among those who had wanted it. But the Emperor's word was law in the Cathari Empire, and humanity's leadership had fully endorsed the treaty. Over the following years, the relationship between humanity and the Empire evolved slowly. Scholars exchanged knowledge. Traders began to explore opportunities. Diplomats worked out the countless small details that made peaceful coexistence possible. High Archivist Seleth was given the task of creating the first official entry for humanity in the Imperial database. It was a challenge she approached with her usual meticulous care. She studied human history extensively, reading their accounts of wars and atrocities, of triumphs and disasters. She learned about their near-extinction events, their environmental catastrophes, their long climb from barbarism to civilization. She saw a species that had repeatedly tried to destroy itself and repeatedly found the strength to survive. When she finally composed the entry, she chose her words carefully. Humanity, species designation, human, origin, world Earth. First contact established in the year 47,823 of Imperial Reckoning. Initial contact hostile due to mutual misunderstanding. Treaty of peace established following negotiations. Assessment. Technologically advanced despite short history of spaceflight. Military capabilities significant. Tactical and strategic abilities exceptional. Cultural values emphasize restraint, self-improvement, and rejection of conquest. Threat level, maximum. This species possesses the capability to wage effective warfare against Imperial forces. Hostility level, none unless provoked. This species demonstrates consistent preference for peaceful resolution of conflicts and has shown willingness to exercise restraint even when holding tactical advantage. Recommendation: maintain peaceful relations. Avoid provocation. This species makes a dangerous enemy and potentially a valuable ally. She filed the entry and marked the case closed. The mystery of the unknown ships had been solved. The Empire had gained new neighbors who were neither servants nor conquerors. Captain Chen returned to Earth as a hero. She had prevented a war that could have cost millions of lives. She had established humanity's place in the galactic community. And she had demonstrated that the principles humanity had fought so hard to embrace could work even when facing a vast and powerful empire. At a ceremony honoring her accomplishments, she was asked to speak about what she had learned. I learned that power is not the same as strength, she said. The Cathari Empire has enormous power. Ships, weapons, territory, resources. But true strength is knowing when not to use that power. True strength is choosing peace when war would be easier. True strength is offering mercy when victory is already assured. They could have conquered us, someone in the audience said. They still could if they gathered enough forces. Perhaps, but they chose not to. And we chose not to give them a reason to. That's how peace works. both sides choosing every day to maintain it. Years later, the first human ambassador presented the emperor with a gift. It was a small glass sphere containing a perfect replica of Earth, suspended in transparent material. Oceans and continents were visible in miniature detail. "This is our homeworld," the ambassador explained. "Everything we are began here. All our wars, all our mistakes, all our triumphs. This little ball of rock taught us everything we know about being human." The emperor examined the gift carefully. "It is beautiful. What does the inscription say?" The ambassador smiled. "It says, 'We came from this. We will not lose what it taught us.'" The emperor placed the sphere in a position of honor in his private chambers. It remained there for the rest of his long reign, a reminder of the strange species that had appeared from nowhere, terrified his empire, and then offered friendship instead of conquest. It remained a reminder of the lesson humanity had learned the hard way, that the greatest victory is the war that never happens, and the greatest strength is the hand extended in peace. And somewhere in the vast archives of the Imperial database, Seleth's entry continued to stand as the official record of humanity's place in the galaxy. Threat level, maximum. Hostility level, none unless provoked. It was perhaps the most accurate description of humanity ever written.